The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched out like a massive bowl carved from living crystal. Thousands of seats rose in circles toward a domed ceiling that showed the stars themselves. Beings from 100 different worlds sat in those seats, watching and waiting. Some had scales that changed color with their moods. Others had bodies made of living light. A few were so strange that human eyes could not fully understand what they were seeing. At the center of this vast space stood Katie Morgan. She was alone. A single human woman in a simple gray uniform, surrounded by creatures who had been traveling between stars when her ancestors were still living in caves. She kept her hands folded behind her back and her face calm, though her heart was beating fast. High Arbiter Zorvac looked down at her from his elevated platform. He was tall, nearly 3 meters, with scales that shimmered between blue and green. 6 eyes studied her from different angles, each one moving on its own. His voice was deep and cold when he spoke. "The Council has considered the human request for full membership," Zorvac said. His words were translated instantly into every language in the chamber. "We have studied your species. We have examined your history, your technology, your culture. We have reached a decision." Katie nodded slightly but said nothing. She had spent 6 years working toward this moment. 6 years of meetings and negotiations and careful diplomacy. Earth needed this alliance. Humanity needed access to the technologies and trade routes that Council membership would provide. Humanity is hereby classified as a subordinate species. Category 7, Zorvac announced. The words hit Katie like a physical blow. But she did not let it show on her face. As a subordinate species, humans will provide labor and raw materials to full member worlds, Zorvac continued. Your military vessels will be taken apart. Your colonies will be governed by council-appointed administrators. Your population will serve the greater good of galactic civilization. Around the chamber, delegates from other species made sounds of approval. Clicking and humming and strange vibrations filled the air. Katie understood what was happening. These species had been in power for so long that they could not imagine any other arrangement. To them, this was simply the natural order of things. "Do you have anything to say, human?" Zorvac asked. There was something like amusement in his many eyes. Katie took a slow breath. She thought about her grandmother, who had survived the water wars on Earth. She thought about her father, who had helped build the first human colony outside the solar system. She thought about all the generations of humans who had struggled and fought and refused to give up, even when everything seemed hopeless. "I do have something to say," Katie replied. Her voice was steady and clear. "I want to make sure I understood you correctly. You are telling me that the Galactic Council has decided to enslave humanity, to take our ships, our colonies, our freedom. Is that correct?" Zorvac's scales flickered with annoyance. "We do not use the word enslave. Subordinate species serve a vital role in our civilization. You should be honored to contribute to something greater than yourselves." "I see," Katie said. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small communication device. "Admiral Cooper, this is Ambassador Morgan." They chose option 3. A moment of static, then a male voice answered. "Understood, Ambassador. Starting response now. You have 6 hours to get clear." Katie put the device away and looked up at the High Arbiter. "I'm afraid there has been a terrible misunderstanding, High Arbiter. You seem to believe that you have power over humanity. You do not." For the first time, something like uncertainty crossed Zorvac's face. "You are one woman, alone, surrounded by the greatest powers in the galaxy. You have no position to make threats." "I am not making threats," Katie said. "I am making promises. You looked at humanity and saw a young species with a small territory and limited technology. You saw weakness, but you made a mistake that older and wiser beings have made before you." She began walking toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the suddenly silent chamber. "You underestimated us." A delegate from a species Katie did not recognize called out. "Where do you think you are going? You cannot simply leave. The council has spoken." Katie stopped and turned back to face the assembled beings. "The council has made a declaration. That is not the same as having the power to enforce it. In approximately 5 hours and 50 minutes, you will begin to understand the difference." "Guards," Zorvik commanded. "Detain the human." 4 massive security officers moved toward Katie. They were from a species known for their strength and speed, each one capable of tearing a human apart with their bare hands. Katie did not run. She did not even look worried. She simply stood there as they approached. Then the lights went out. The entire chamber was plunged into darkness for exactly 3 seconds. When the lights returned, the 4 guards were on the ground, unconscious. Katie had not moved from her spot. "As I said," she continued, as if nothing had happened, "you have underestimated us. The beings who just disabled your guards were not even our best operatives. They were simply the ones who happened to be nearby." She resumed walking toward the exit. 6 hours, High Arbiter. I suggest you use that time wisely. When we speak again, I expect the conversation will be very different." The massive doors of the chamber opened before her and closed behind her, leaving a room full of shocked and confused beings. Zorvik turned to his aide, a small nervous creature with too many legs. "How is this possible? Their technology is primitive. Their numbers are insignificant." The aide consulted a data device with trembling appendages. "High Arbiter, I do not know. But perhaps we should consider the possibility that our information about the humans was not complete." "Find out everything," Zorvik ordered. "Every ship they have, every colony, every weapon. I want to know exactly what we are dealing with." "Yes, High Arbiter." At once, as his aide hurried away, Zorvik looked at the doors through which the human had departed. For the first time in his very long life, he felt something that might have been fear. The human had smiled at him before she left on. It was not a friendly smile. Katie Morgan walked through the streets of the council capital with purpose in her steps. Around her, the great city of Velantris Prime buzzed with confusion and fear. Beings of a dozen different species hurried past, many of them staring at their communication devices that still displayed the human message. Others stood in groups, speaking in rapid and worried tones that no one tried to stop her. Word had spread quickly about what had happened in the council chamber. The human ambassador was not someone to approach lightly. She reached the human embassy, a modest building that had always seemed small compared to the grand structures around it. Her deputy, Lucas Grant, met her at the door. He was a young man, barely 30 years old, with worried eyes and a tablet clutched in his hands. "Ambassador, we need to evacuate," he said immediately. "The council has declared us subordinate. They could send soldiers at any moment." "Cancel the evacuation," Katie said as she walked past him into the building. "We are not going anywhere." "But Ambassador, we are in danger here. We should get back to Earth while we still can." Katie stopped and turned to face him. "Lucas, do you know why I chose you as my deputy?" "No, Ambassador." "I have often wondered. Because you worry. You think about all the things that could go wrong. That makes you valuable, because it means you prepare for problems before they happen." She put a hand on his shoulder. "But right now, I need you to trust me. The council is not going to send soldiers. They are not going to arrest us. In fact, in about 10 minutes, they are going to be far too busy to think about us at all." She led him to a window that looked out over the city. From here, they could see the great council spire rising toward the clouds. It was the largest building on the planet, the center of galactic government for thousands of years. "Watch," Katie said. Lucas watched. For a moment, nothing happened. The city continued its nervous activity. Ships flew through the air on their regular routes. Lights glowed in millions of windows. Then, all at once, every light went out. The entire city was plunged into darkness. Emergency systems tried to activate, but they failed too. For the first time in living memory, the great capital of the Galactic Council sat in complete and total blackness. Lucas stared out at the darkened city with his mouth hanging open. "How did we do that?" "We control their power grid," Katie explained calmly. "We also control their communications, their transportation systems, their orbital defenses, and quite a few other things they have not discovered yet. But their technology is so far ahead of ours. They have been building these systems for thousands of years." Yes, they have. And in all those thousands of years, they never imagined that anyone would try to take control of them. They never bothered to install proper security. Why would they? They were the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. Who would dare to attack them? The lights came back on as suddenly as they had died. The city returned to life, but now the worried buzz had become something closer to panic. "That was just a demonstration," Katie continued. "We wanted them to understand what we are capable of. If we had wanted to cause real damage, we could have. We could have shut down life support on every orbital station. We could have crashed every ship in the sky. We could have turned their own defense platforms against their cities." Lucas swallowed hard. Why did we not tell them about any of this? We could have used it as a bargaining position in the negotiations. Because they would not have believed us. They have spent so long looking down on younger species that they cannot imagine being challenged by one. Words would not convince them. Only action could do that. Katie walked to her desk and sat down. For the past 15 years, humanity has been preparing for this moment. We knew the Council would never accept us as equals. Their entire system is built on the idea that older species are superior to younger ones. It is how they maintain power. It is how they keep species like ours under control. So we prepared in secret. We did. Our best hackers studied their systems. Our engineers reverse-engineered their technology. Our operatives infiltrated their most secure facilities. And we did it all while they were busy dismissing us as primitives who could barely manage space travel. Lucas sat down across from her. "What happens now?" "Now we wait. Admiral Cooper has shown them what our fleet can do. We have shown them what our operatives can do. In a few hours, the Council will call an emergency session. They will try to figure out how to respond to us. And then I will go back to that chamber and explain to them exactly how things are going to change. Will they listen?" Katie smiled. It was not a kind smile. They will have no choice. We hold our cards now. They just do not know it yet. There was a knock at the door. Lucas opened it to find a council messenger standing there, looking extremely nervous. "A message for Ambassador Morgan," the messenger said, holding out a sealed container. "From the High Arbiter's office." Katie took the container and opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a few lines of text. "The Council requests the honor of your presence at an emergency session," she read aloud. "They request that you come alone and unarmed. A trap?" Lucas asked. "Not a trap," Katie said. "A surrender. They just do not want to admit it yet." She stood and straightened her uniform. "Lucas, I want you to send a message to Admiral Cooper. Tell him the fish has taken the bait. It is time to reel it in." She walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back at her deputy. "Oh, and Lucas? Make sure the entire conversation in that chamber is broadcast to every human colony. I want our people to see what happens when someone tries to make humanity a slave." Admiral Samuel Cooper stood on the command deck of the Earth vessel Defiance. He was a tall man in his late 50s, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen both the best and worst of humanity. Around him, officers worked at their stations with quiet focus. The soft glow of screens lit their faces in the darkness of space. "Admiral, we have confirmation from Ambassador Morgan," his communications officer reported. The Council chose option 3. Cooper nodded slowly. They had prepared for this. They had hoped it would not be necessary, but they had prepared. "Signal all ships. Execute Operation Lighthouse." The order went out across the darkness of space, reaching 47 human vessels positioned throughout Council territory. To outside observers, these ships looked like simple trading vessels, cargo haulers, transport craft, nothing that would concern the mighty fleets of the Galactic Council. Those observers were about to receive a surprise. Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos stood at Cooper's side. She was his executive officer, a woman who had spent 20 years in the fleet and had never lost her nerve under pressure. "All ships report ready, Admiral. Open a channel to the fleet," Cooper ordered. A moment later, his voice reached every human vessel in Council space. "This is Admiral Cooper. The Galactic Council has declared humanity a subordinate species. They expect us to give up our ships. They expect us to give up our colonies. They expect us to give up our freedom and serve them like slaves." He paused, letting his words settle in the minds of his crews. They looked at us and saw a young species. A small species. A weak species. They were wrong. For the next several hours, we are going to show them exactly how wrong they were. "All ships, execute Operation Lighthouse. Make them see." Cooper out. Throughout Council space, the trading vessels began to change. Hull panels slid aside to reveal weapons that Council technology could not detect. Engines that had seemed slow and inefficient suddenly produced power levels that should have been impossible. Sensor arrays that the Council did not know existed came online and began gathering information. On 17 different worlds, human operatives who had been living quietly for years walked into critical facilities. Communication hubs, power stations, military coordination centers. They carried no weapons. They did not need them. They simply sat down at computer terminals and began to type. The Council's great network, the system that connected 100 worlds and allowed instant communication across the galaxy, began to experience problems. Small problems at first. A delayed message here. A corrupted file there. Then bigger problems. Entire sectors went dark. Military ships lost contact with their commanders. Emergency systems failed to respond. On the Council capital world of Velantris Prime, every screen in every building suddenly displayed the same message. It appeared on personal devices and public displays, on military equipment and civilian entertainment systems. The words were simple. "You do not own us. You never will." Signed, Humanity. High Arbiter Zorvuk stared at the message on his private screen. His scales had gone pale, a sign of extreme stress in his species. How are they doing this? It is impossible. His aide rushed in, nearly tripping over its own legs in panic. "High Arbiter, reports are coming in from across Council space. Human vessels have revealed hidden weapons. They are jamming our communications. Our military coordination network is completely offline." "Then destroy them," Zorvak commanded. "We have thousands of warships. They have less than 50. We cannot coordinate our forces, High Arbiter. Each fleet is operating blind. And sir, there's more." The aide's voice trembled. "The humans have taken control of 14 orbital defense platforms. They have the ability to destroy any ship that approaches the capital." Zorvak's 6 eyes widened. Those platforms were supposed to be impossible to hack. They used the most advanced security systems in the galaxy. How long have they had this capability? "We do not know, High Arbiter. Our analysts are saying it could have been months. It could have been years. We simply do not know. On the Defiance, Admiral Cooper watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Everything was going according to plan. Human operatives had spent years infiltrating Council systems, learning their weaknesses, preparing for this moment. The Council species had grown comfortable in their power. They had stopped updating their security. They had stopped imagining that anyone could challenge them. That comfort had made them vulnerable. "Admiral," Santos reported, "Council forces are attempting to mount a response. 3 cruisers are moving toward the Defiance." "Let them come," Cooper said. "But do not fire on them. Not unless they fire first, sir." "This is not about destruction, Lieutenant Commander. This is about demonstration. We need to show them what we can do, not actually do it. Dead Council citizens will only make them angry. Humiliated Council leaders will make them willing to negotiate." The 3 cruisers approached. They were massive vessels, each one capable of reducing the Defiance to atoms. On paper, the human ship had no chance against them, but the Defiance was not an ordinary ship. As the cruisers came into weapons range, they suddenly found their targeting systems going offline. Their engines began to lose power. Their shields flickered and died. One by one, the 3 mighty warships drifted helplessly in space, unable to fight, unable to flee, unable to even call for help. On board the lead cruiser, the captain stared at his dead controls in disbelief. "What is happening? What have they done to us?" His crew had no answers. On the Defiance, Cooper allowed himself a small smile. "Send a message to those cruisers. Tell them we mean no harm and that their systems will be restored in 1 hour. Also tell them that next time, they might want to update their security protocols." Santa shook her head in wonder. "How did we manage all this? I thought the Council was thousands of years ahead of us." "They were ahead of us in technology," Cooper said. "But they forgot the most important lesson of warfare. It is not about who has the biggest guns. It is about who knows how to use what they have. The Council stopped learning centuries ago. We never stopped." He looked down at the stars, thinking about all the men and women who had worked in secret for years to make this moment possible. "Send another message to the ambassador. Tell her the table is set. Time for her to serve the main course." The Council chamber felt different when Katie Morgan entered it for the second time. The seats were still filled with beings from across the galaxy, but the atmosphere had changed completely. Where there had been confidence and superiority, there was now fear and uncertainty. Delegates whispered to each other nervously. Many refused to meet her eyes as she walked past. Admiral Cooper walked beside her in his full dress uniform. Every medal he had earned in 30 years of service gleamed on his chest. Behind them came a small group of human soldiers, their weapons visible but not raised. They were not there to fight. They were there to make a point. High Arbiter Zorvak sat in his elevated seat, but he no longer looked commanding. His scales had lost their color. His 6 eyes moved constantly, as if he expected an attack from any direction. When he spoke, his voice lacked the authority it had carried just hours earlier. "Ambassador Morgan," he said, "you have come." "I have," Katie replied. "And I believe we have some things to discuss." "You have committed acts of war against the Council," Zorvak said, trying to sound stern but failing. "You have disrupted our communications. You have seized control of our defense systems. You have humiliated us before the entire galaxy." "We have demonstrated our capabilities," Katie corrected him. "There is a difference. Not a single Council citizen has been hurt. Not one of your ships has been destroyed. We could have done terrible damage. We chose not to. I hope you appreciate the significance of that choice." A delegate from one of the senior species stood up. He was old even by galactic standards, his body supported by a mechanical frame. Why should we appreciate anything? You have attacked us. You should be punished, not rewarded. Punished by whom? Admiral Cooper spoke for the first time. His voice was calm and steady. Your military cannot coordinate without the network that we control. Your defense platforms answer to us now. Your power grid, your transportation systems, your emergency services, all of them can be turned off with a single command. You have no way to punish us. The old delegate sank back into his seat, unable to argue. Katie walked to the center of the chamber, turning slowly to address all the assembled beings. I want you to understand something. We do not want this confrontation. We came to the council seeking partnership, seeking friendship, seeking the chance to learn from species who had traveled among the stars for millennia. We offered peace and cooperation. She paused, letting her words echo in the silent chamber. And you responded by declaring us slaves. You looked at humanity and saw a young species that could be used and controlled. You saw resources to be extracted and labor to be exploited. You saw us as less than yourselves, simply because we were new to the stars. That is the way of things, Zorvik said weakly. Older species guide younger ones. It has always been so. It has always been so because no one has ever challenged it, Katie replied. Until now. We are challenging it. We are telling you that humanity will never be a subordinate species. We will never serve as your labor force. We will never hand over our ships or our colonies or our freedom. Then what do you want? Zorvik asked. Full membership in the council with all the rights that entails. Equal treatment for all human colonies and citizens. And a formal apology for the subordinate species declaration. Impossible, another delegate called out. No species has ever been granted full membership so quickly. There are procedures, traditions. Your traditions were designed to keep young species under your control, Katie said. They were never about fairness or merit. They were about power. We are offering you a chance to change that. And if we refuse? Zorvik asked. Then humanity leaves the council, Katie said simply. We take our technology, our resources, and our capabilities, and we go our own way. We build our own alliance with species who share our values. She gestured toward the gathered delegates. You might be surprised to learn that not everyone in this chamber is happy with the current system. There are species here who have been waiting centuries for a chance to change things. We have already been in contact with many of them. Several delegates suddenly found the floor very interesting to look at. If humanity leaves, we will not leave alone. Your council will lose some of its most productive members. Your economy will suffer. Your military will be weakened. And you will spend the rest of your existence looking over your shoulder, wondering what the humans are planning next. The chamber fell into absolute silence. Every being present understood that they were witnessing a moment that would be remembered for thousands of years. The old order was crumbling, and something new was being born. Admiral Cooper stepped forward. We are not trying to destroy you. We are not trying to rule you. We simply want to be treated as equals. That is all we have ever wanted. If you can accept that, if you can let go of your pride and your traditions and your belief that you are superior to everyone else, then we can work together. We can build something better than what exists now. And if we cannot accept it, Zorvik asked quietly, then you will watch everything you have built fall apart, Katie said. Not because we will destroy it, but because it was already falling apart. Your council is held together by fear and habit, not by loyalty or shared purpose. The moment a real alternative appears, species will leave. We are offering you that alternative. She walked closer to the High Arbiter's platform and looked up at him. You have been in power for so long that you forgot what it means to earn respect. You assumed that everyone would follow you forever, because they always had before. But times change. Humanity is proof of that. We went from caves to starships in less time than it takes your species to agree on a trade policy. What would you have us do? Zorvak asked. He sounded tired now, defeated. Call a vote. Full membership for humanity, along with reforms to the subordinate species system. Let the council decide its own future. Zorvak looked around the chamber at the faces of his fellow leaders. He saw fear in some, hope in others, and calculation in many. The old certainties were gone. The choice before them was clear: adapt or fade away. Very well, Zorvak said finally. We will vote. 3 months had passed since the vote that changed the galaxy. The result had not been close. When faced with the choice between accepting humanity as equals or watching their ancient institution crumble, the Council had chosen survival. 73 species voted in favor of full membership for humanity. Only 12 voted against, and most of those changed their position within weeks when they saw which way things were moving. But the vote was only the beginning. In the months that followed, the entire structure of galactic governance began to transform. The subordinate species classification was abolished completely. 37 species that had labored under its restrictions for centuries were suddenly free. Some of them had been serving as little more than slaves, their populations used for mining and manufacturing while receiving nothing in return. Now they had voices. Now they had rights. Now they had hope. High Arbiter Zorvak had resigned the day after the vote. He had not been forced out, but he understood that his time was over. A new leadership council had taken his place, one that included representatives from younger species for the first time in galactic history. The old ways were not dead, but they were dying. Katie Morgan stood on the observation deck of the new human embassy. The building had been completed just 2 weeks earlier, a gleaming tower that rose nearly as high as the old council spire. It was a symbol of how much had changed in such a short time. Lucas Grant stood beside her, as he often did these days. He had become her chief advisor, the person she trusted most to tell her uncomfortable truths. He was watching a group of alien diplomats walking through the plaza below. Do you think they will ever really accept us? He asked, not just publicly, but in their hearts? Katie considered the question carefully. Some will. The younger species already see us as allies and friends. The older ones are more complicated. They spent so long believing they were superior that it will take generations for that belief to fade. Does it bother you, knowing that many of them still look down on us? Not really. What matters is not what they think of us. What matters is what we do. We earned our place here, not through their approval, but through our own actions. As long as we keep doing what we have always done, as long as we keep growing and learning and pushing forward, their opinions do not matter. She turned away from the window and walked to her desk. It was covered with reports and proposals, the endless paperwork of galactic diplomacy. But she did not mind. Every document represented progress, represented change, represented a future that would be better than the past. I received a message from Admiral Cooper this morning, she said. The fleet has completed its withdrawal from Council space. All of our operatives have been pulled back as well. Is that wise? We still have enemies here. We also have friends. And keeping our forces here would send the wrong message. We came to prove that we could not be controlled, not to control others. If we occupied their space with our military, we would become the thing we fought against. There was a knock at the door. One of Katie's assistants entered with a tablet. Ambassador, there is a delegation here to see you. Representatives from the Korvath Collective. Katie raised an eyebrow. The Korvath had been one of the 12 species that voted against human membership. Their leader had given a long speech of the dangers of allowing primitives to have power in the council. Now they wanted to talk. Send them in, she said. The Korvath delegation consisted of 3 beings. tall and thin with skin that looked like polished wood. Their leader stepped forward and performed a gesture that Katie recognized as one of respect. "Ambassador Morgan," he said, "I am Speaker Ven. I have come to apologize on behalf of my people." Katie kept her expression neutral. "Apologize for what?" "For our vote. For our words. For our failure to see what your species truly is." Ven lowered his eyes, a sign of shame in his culture. "We looked at your short history and saw weakness. We looked at your small territory and saw insignificance. We were wrong. Why the change of heart? Because of what happened after the vote. You had power over us. You could have punished those who opposed you. You could have demanded compensation or tribute. Instead, you restored our systems, withdrew your forces, and offered friendship." Ven looked up again. "That is not what weak species do. That is not what insignificant species do. That is what great species do." Katie stood and walked around her desk to face the Korvath delegation directly. "We did not come here to be great. We came here to be free. Everything else follows from that." "Perhaps that is why you are great," Ven said. "Because you do not seek greatness for its own sake." After the Korvath departed with promises of future cooperation, Katie returned to the observation deck. The sun was setting over the city, painting the alien architecture in shades of gold and purple. Ships moved through the sky in endless patterns, carrying beings from 100 worlds to 1,000 destinations. Lucas joined her again. That was unexpected. Not really. The Korvath are pragmatic. They opposed us because they thought it was the winning side. Now they know better. Is that what this is about? Picking the winning side? Katie shook her head. No, some of them will never truly change. They will pretend to respect us while waiting for a chance to put us back in our place. That is fine. We will be ready for them, just as we were ready this time. So it never ends? The struggle, the preparation, the constant vigilance? No, it never ends. That is what it means to be human. We are always fighting for something, always working towards something, always reaching for something just beyond our grasp. The moment we stop, the moment we become comfortable and complacent, that is when we truly lose. She looked up at the stars, visible now as the sky darkened. Out there, human ships were exploring new systems, establishing new colonies, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. On Earth, children were being born who would grow up in a galaxy where humanity was a respected and powerful species. They would never know how close it had come to being otherwise. The galaxy tried to make us slaves, Katie said softly. They failed. They will probably try again in different ways. And they will fail again, because that is who we are. We do not give up. We do not give in. We do not accept the limits others try to place on us. Lucas smiled. Humanity always has a choice. Exactly, Katie said, returning his smile. And we always choose to fight. Far across the galaxy, on a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary star, life went on as it always had. People worked and played and loved and argued and dreamed. Most of them never fully understood what had happened in the great chambers of power light years away. They only knew that something had changed, something important. Humanity had proven its worth among the stars, and the universe would never be the same.